Hi everyone. To complete this paraphrasing assignment, I wanted to give you kind of an example of how you can go about doing this. I mentioned in the announcements that there is a document I'd like you to look over first that's about summarizing, paraphrasing, and quoting. And it explains the difference between the types. And it also gives a couple pointers about things you want to make sure you're always doing when you quote and things you want to make sure you're always doing when you paraphrase. So your basic assignment is to paraphrase from the reading to from Is School Too Shallow? And I know this is coming after you've already found your database article, but this is an assignment that asks you to focus on reading to Is School Too Shallow? So you want to pull a quote from that to use in our upcoming Unit 3 summary and response essay. And there's some explanations of why and some good tips in here. There's also a common module on paraphrasing resources that I recommend that you click on and look through and read some of those resources as well. And you can see that there are directions right here about how to set up your paraphrase, because what you're going to be doing is you're going to be choosing a quote from the article, and you're going to show that you know how to quote it, and then you're going to explain your reasons for selecting the quote, and then you're going to create a paraphrase for the quote. So as a good critical thinker, the first thing I always do is I figure out how I'm going to set up my document. And since these are the major instructions, I'm just going to cut and paste them directly into my Word document that I'll be submitting. And you can see that it says set it up in the following formats. I'm just going to open this. It's old. Get a new document going. And at the top, I'm just going to cut and paste this right in front of me, and it's huge, so I'm going to change that because I find it distracting that it's so big, because I'm basically just using this as like a guideline. So here we go. Too big. There we go. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do my quotation. Copy and paste the short excerpt, 1 to 2 sentences from reading 2. Quote exactly as it appears in the text. Put quotation marks around the excerpt as it comes directly from your source, and add the citation, author's last name, year of publication, and page or paragraph number. That's always the basic citation format. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to click on the article. It's linked right here. And hopefully SIRS is loading, but it might not be. There we go. It is loading. Hooray. Okay. So I'm just going to pick a sentence that I like. And remember, you're supposed to be looking for a quote that maybe you can incorporate into your summary response paper. So I guess I'll do that too. I'm going to look for a quote that I either agree or disagree with, that I have some ideological response to. So I'm going to take this quote because I feel like I can have some kind of response to it. So I'm just going to copy it, and then I'm going to put it into my quotation section. And I'm going to put quotes around it immediately. Anytime you copy and paste, put quotes around it immediately to remind you that this is what the source said. So I'm this he is a little bit weird. And also, I'm not gonna encourage y'all to ever, in writing a paper, just dump an entire sentence into the paper. You want to incorporate your quotes using things like attributive tags and signal phrases to make it work, to make the quotes work in the flow of your paper. So I'm gonna back it up because I actually need to include a little context and figure out who the heck he is. He. Okay. Okay, Gormley. Who's this Gormley dude? And you can see that this is a simple quote, but it's involving me going back quite a bit. Oh, it's a she. So that's my fault for being gendered. Gormley. She is a professor of public policy. Okay. Oh, nope. William. The she is a 7th grade teacher. All right. You should be careful with my pronouns. William Gormley. I'm going to assume he's a he. Okay. So here, I'm just going to include who this is coming from. Professor Gormley. And I'm going to give a little introduction so we know who the heck Professor Gormley is. And I don't think that I spelled Professor Gormley's name correctly. I did not. This is the kind of stuff you want to make sure that you're watching out for. Paused it for a second so I could look up. Okay. We'll say who teaches public policy, or I'll actually say whose field is public policy, explains I'm going to do explains that. And I'm going to get rid of this phrase because we don't really need it. If you have a colloquialism, a transition like that you don't need anymore, you can get rid of it and just start the quote mid-quote. And so there we go. Explains it in extracurricular activities, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to highlight it and make sure that this isn't more than 40 words. And I'll look down here and nope, it's 23 of 180. So I don't need to do a block quote. So then I'm going to finish it up with by citing. So this is Gormley talking, but we're citing from Stacy Caterou's article. So we're actually going to do something super fancy. We're going to say as cited in, make sure I spell Cateroux right. Cateroux. And I'm going to look at the year that this was published, 2017, and I'm going to count the paragraphs because there's no page numbers listed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So paragraph 18. And yes, I just counted all of those. That's how it goes. If your counting is a little off, it's fine. I can ballpark it. So 2017, paragraph 18. And that's my quote. I'm going to get rid of this stuff. I've done all of these things. I'm going to put it in Times New Roman because we all know that's how I roll. And then reason for selecting the quote. I'm going to answer these questions. Provide a brief 1 to 2 sentences justification for selecting this quotation. Why did you choose it? Do you agree or disagree with the point made by the author in the quotation? How do you envision using the quote or your paraphrase of it in the upcoming Unit 3 summary and response essay? So I might answer something like, I picked this quote because it spoke to me during my annotation phase. I highlighted it and said, I thought it was interesting. And I'll say, I liked it because it agreed with my experience in high school. I don't know. And obviously I'm going to go back because I have a billion typos in there, and you should too. And you shouldn't write it exactly what I'm writing, but basically answering these questions. And then I can just Get rid of that and leave that. Now to paraphrase it, I'm going to take the whole quotation and I'm going to pop it in here. I don't know what directly under each excerpt means. Control V. Are we supposed to do multiples? I don't think so. I think those are just confusing instructions. Let's double check. They just updated these, so. Yeah, that's a confusing instruction that I think was left over from an older version of the assignment, but all you have to do is include a paraphrase of the quote you just included up there. So to create a paraphrase, we're going to put the quoted part in our own words. And this may take a couple tries because you want to get something that completely changes the wording and the sentence structure. Often it's also shorter too. Okay, and so now I have this paraphrase. I'm still going to include the exact same citation. That was a pretty fast one for me. Usually you saw me going back and having to rewrite. You're going to have to do the same thing, erase things, change things. But you can see that this does not look exactly like this. And in this case, it actually ended up a little longer, which will sometimes happen. Because I'm also sort of paraphrasing this implication right here. So you can see that what I've done is I've taken the original quote and I have changed it into my own words. And that's what you want to do. I should probably actually, I'm going to get rid of this to make it a little bit shorter. Because I don't necessarily want to get into like including the implication. See how I'm editing as I think about it? This happens with paraphrasing. Paraphrasing should not be a quick thing. It's going to take a little bit of work. And I'm still going to include this citation because if I don't, it's plagiarism. And then that's it. This is what I would turn in. I would make sure it was all the same font color. I probably would double space it just because that's APA formatting. And then there we go. This is exactly what I would turn in, and this is what I'm expecting to see from y'all. A quote, preferably cited like this, that has a setup into the quote, an explanation of why you picked the quote, and a paraphrase of that quote where you put it in your own language. You don't use quotation marks. You completely change the words and the sentence structure, but you also include a quote.